Hollywood isn't just releasing movies in 2026, it's making statements. This lineup includes franchise-defining sequels, long-awaited adaptations, and a few projects so ambitious they could reshape blockbuster cinema altogether. Some of these films have been years in the making. Others are massive risk studios are betting everything on. From legendary filmmakers to world building on an epic scale, these are the 10 movies that will dominate conversation, headlines, and box offices. Let's start the countdown. Number 10, Resident Evil, September 18th. After years of uneven adaptations, Resident Evil is back on the radar, largely because of Zach Cregger stepping in to reboot the franchise. Cregger's recent rise in modern horror has earned him a reputation for grounded tension, unsettling atmosphere, and stories that trust restraint over spectacle. And that's exactly why this project feels different. From what's been shared so far, this reboot isn't chasing non-stop action or familiar characters, but instead aims to rebuild the world from the ground up with a heavier focus on dread and survival. That creative shift alone makes it one of the more intriguing wildcards of the year. Expectations are understandably cautious given the franchise's past, but Cregger's involvement suggests this could finally be a Resident Evil that prioritizes fear, mood, and confidence over noise. Number 9, Disclosure Day, June 12th.
They're coming! They're coming!
They are starved for the truth.
Disclosure Day instantly stands out because it marks Steven Spielberg returning to the UFO genre, a space that has defined some of the most iconic moments in sci-fi history. From what's been revealed so far, this isn't being positioned as loud, effects-driven spectacle, but as a more grounded, curiosity-driven story built around mystery, awe, and unease. Early trailers and reports suggest a tone that leans into suspense and atmosphere, focusing on how ordinary people react when something world-altering finally comes into the open. The cast alone signals a character-driven approach, and the creative team hints at a film that's more about tension and wonder than action beats. If it delivers on what's being teased, Disclosure Day could feel less like a typical Alien movie and more like an event, one that taps into the same sense of intrigue and emotional weight that made Spielberg's earlier sci-fi work so enduring. Number 8, The Mandalorian and Grogu, May 22nd. This one earns its spot because it represents a major shift for Star Wars. After running for 3 seasons as a flagship streaming series, The Mandalorian is making the jump to the big screen, effectively replacing what was once planned as a 4th season. From what's been shown so far, the move isn't just about scale. It's about repositioning this corner of the galaxy as the next theatrical backbone of the franchise. Early footage and reports suggest a more cinematic approach, with bigger set pieces, broader stakes, and a tone that blends classic adventure with the character-driven appeal that made the show such a phenomenon. It's also a litmus test. If this works, it could reshape how future Star Wars stories are told. Whether longtime fans or casual viewers are ready for that transition is the big question, but the ambition alone makes this one impossible to ignore. Number 7, Narnia, The Magician's Nephew, November 26th. Narnia earns its place here because this isn't just a return to a beloved fantasy world. It's a full-scale reimagining led by Greta Gerwig, tackling the story that chronologically begins the entire saga. From what's been revealed so far, the decision to start with The Magician's Nephew signals a desire to rebuild the franchise from its mythic foundations rather than leaning on familiar nostalgia. Early reports point to a tone that blends wonder, darkness, and emotional weight, with a heavy emphasis on world building and origin storytelling. The cast alone suggests something more dramatic and character-driven than past adaptations, and the scale of the production hints at a long-term vision rather than a one-off experiment. If it delivers on what's being promised, this could redefine how Narnia exists on screen for a new generation. Number 6, Project Hail Mary, March 20th.
I conquered Zero G in 5 hours. Yeah.
Project Hail Mary lands this high largely because it brings together one of the most popular modern sci-fi novels with a creative team that knows how to balance scale, emotion, and accessibility. Based on Andy Weir's bestseller, the story is being positioned as hard science fiction that still plays like a character-driven survival thriller. From the trailers and early buzz, the emphasis seems to be on discovery, problem-solving, and isolation, rather than non-stop action, which sets it apart from typical space spectacles. Ryan Gosling's involvement signals a more grounded, introspective lead, while the filmmaking team hints at inventive visuals and tonal shifts that lean into both tension and wonder. If the adaptation captures the book's mix of science, humor, and emotional payoff, this could be one of those rare sci-fi films that connects with both hardcore genre fans and mainstream audiences alike. Number 5. Spider-Man: Brand New Day, July 31st.
We ready?
Brand New Day represents a true reset for Spider-Man after the universe-shaking events of No Way Home. Peter Parker is starting over with no Avengers, no public identity, and no one who remembers who he really is. The focus shifts back to street-level crime, personal consequences, and the everyday struggle of being Spider-Man without a safety net. That change in scale gives the story a more grounded, gritty edge that longtime fans have been asking for. Destin Daniel Cretton's directing style leans heavily into character and physicality, which pairs well with a version of Peter who's rebuilding himself from the ground up. With a darker supporting cast and a stripped-down approach, this feels less like a massive crossover and more like a return to Spider-Man's roots. Number 4. The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping, November 20th. This entry dives deeper into Panem's darkest era by centering on a young Haymitch Abernathy during the brutal Second Quarter quell. By doubling the number of tributes, the games feel more vicious, more chaotic, and far more hopeless than anything seen before. The story reframes Haymitch from a sarcastic mentor into a survivor shaped by loss, manipulation, and cruelty. Francis Lawrence returning to direct brings a familiar tone, but the perspective shift gives the franchise fresh emotional weight. The cast blends rising talent with veteran power players, reinforcing the sense that this is a major chapter rather than a side story. Instead of nostalgia-driven fan service, the focus is on trauma, strategy, and how the Capitol breaks its winners long before they ever mentor anyone else. Number 3. Dune, Part 3, December 18th. This chapter completes Denis Villeneuve's vision by shifting the story from myth-making to consequence. Paul Atreides is no longer rising. He's ruling, and the weight of his choices begins to fracture everything around him. The tone moves away from triumph and into political tension, moral decay, and the cost of absolute power. By adapting Dune Messiah, the film challenges the idea of a chosen one and actively dismantles the legend built across the first two films. The returning cast carries more complexity, while new players add danger and unpredictability to an already unstable empire. Villeneuve's restraint is what makes this entry powerful. Less spectacle for spectacle's sake, more slow-burning dread. It's a bold, uncompromising conclusion that prioritizes theme over fan service, and that's exactly why it earns its spot this high. Number 2. Avengers: Doomsday, December 18th.
A child. A life untouched by the storm.
This is Marvel going all in on a hard reset. Doomsday isn't just another team up, it's a statement. The Russo brothers are back, the scale is massive, and the MCU finally leans fully into multiverse chaos with purpose. What makes this entry different is the villain. Dr. Doom isn't a one-note threat. He's positioned as the intellectual and ideological opposite of the Avengers, forcing heroes from multiple generations to confront legacy, failure, and power. The cast alone feels like an event, blending the Avengers, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and newer heroes into one collision course. But the real hook is tone, darker, more serious, and far closer to Infinity War than anything Marvel's done recently. This feels less like fan service and more like a high-stakes course correction for the entire franchise. Number 1. The Odyssey, July 17th. This sits at number 1 because it feels like a once-in-a-generation movie event. Christopher Nolan isn't just adapting the Odyssey. He's reclaiming myth as spectacle. This is his most expensive film, his most technically ambitious, and arguably his most personal. Shot entirely on IMAX 70mm, the scale isn't digital excess. It's physical, punishing, and immersive. What elevates it is the angle. Not gods and monsters for fantasy's sake, but endurance, obsession, and the cost of survival. Odysseus isn't framed as a flawless hero, but as a strategist slowly worn down by time, distance, and consequence. Nolan's films have always circled memory, time, and identity. And this story is the blueprint for all of them. That's why this isn't just anticipated, it feels inevitable. And that's the list. Not just big movies, but the ones that feel like events. The kind of films studios don't gamble on often, directors build careers toward, and audiences circle on the calendar months in advance. Some will divide people, some might disappoint, but all of them aim high, and that alone makes them worth watching. If even half of these land the way the trailers and early buzz suggest, 2026 could be one of those rare years we look back on and say, yeah, movies were back. Let me know which one you're most excited for, and which one you think is being overhyped.